Diane from Millhouse Quilts, and today we're going to have a series of lectures on scrap quilting, which is my favorite kind of quilting. Or traditional scrap quilting, miniatures, what I call generations, odds and ends and fun stuff, and then anything else that we throw in. So first of all, we have to define what is a scrap quilt. And the most obvious definition is it's a quilt that's made from scraps left over from some other project. But then you have to figure out, well, what's a scrap? If you purposely buy extra fabric, does it still count as a scrap? If you keep it a long time, do you have to have really old ones to be a scrap, or can it be all new? But I think the best definition is that it is made from scraps from another project. There's also something that is scrappy look, which means you've used lots of different fabrics in it. They may be old, they may be new. A scrap quilt may be a combination of old scraps or new, and it's actually a really good way. If you have some old fabric, you can sneak it in, you think, maybe I shouldn't use that. But if you mix it with new, and if you play, you can tease the eye as to thinking if this is light, dark, too bold, too medium. You can do a lot of things with scrap quilts. I personally, when I'm storing my scraps, if I have a piece of fabric that is 1/4 yard or more, I consider it yardage. So something like this, I would store as a piece of yardage. And I have the luxury of having a closet in my sewing room, and I've organized it with shelves and with drawers. And on my shelves, I put my yardage, and I file that by color. And sometimes by type. I might take all my wovens and put them together. I might put all my batiks together, but I organize them by color so I can go and find it. Now the drawers in the middle are organized by size of piece. And it helps if you're disciplined enough when you get finished with the project. If you deal with the scraps at that point, you'll be happy later on. I have the luxury of drawers, and one of the things I have done is taken some of these spring-loaded dividers, and I can put those down and create sections in my drawers, and then I can have different pieces between each section. Everyone has their own sizes that they will keep or not keep. You have a point where you consider it junk and you'll throw it in the trash. A point where you consider, this is big enough, I'm going to use it for something. And sometimes what you keep depends on how much you like it or don't like it. I find I'll keep a smaller piece of my favorite fabrics and throw one if there's some reason I don't like it. So the smallest piece that I would pre-cut or that I will work with is cut 1 inch wide. But in my drawers, I have sections. And I will start with, actually my first section there is 1.5 inches. Then I go 2, 2.5, 3, and on up to 6. And then I have sort of a catch-all pile that's kind of between 6 and between my 1/4 yard. And I had told you before, 1/4 yard is what I consider yardage. You will also have a point where you may say it has to be 1/2 yard or more to be yardage, or maybe anything bigger than 6 inches. Whatever works for you works. With my 1 inch, I have a series of quilts I have done out of log cabins cut 1 inch wide. And I have pre-cut, because they are a lot of pieces. This is one of them. And so I pre-cut some of the logs for the cabins, and I have little boxes, and I have a label on top of the box. This one says this is 1 inch by 2 inch. So whenever I'm ready to do one of these, I can go to the boxes. I have all my, it goes up to 1 by 6, that's the biggest. But these are pre-cut, and they're lights, darks, mediums, all thrown together. And when I go to do the blocks, I will sort them out by shade, by color, light, dark, whatever I want to use for that project. Now there's so many different kinds of ways you can organize. This is a silverware, a drawer organizer container. You can do something like this if it works for you. These are plastic boxes you can put together, and then you can get several and they hook together. There are all kinds of plastic containers. You can use shoe boxes, anything that works for you. Big bins, little bins. But what really, really helps is to know what's in those bins. And when I talk about organizing it by size, if you have a pattern you're going to use, it's going to say you need 3 inch strips, 4 inch squares, whatever. If you have your pieces organized by size, you can go to the size, you can grab a chunk of pieces, you can go through that stack and very quickly see the color, see the size of the print, the style of the print, but you know they're all the size you're looking for. If everything is stored by color only, you don't know what size it is. So if you had like 3-inch strips mixed in with half yards, quarter yards, 3 yards, you have to go through the whole blue stack and then see, do I have anything 3 inches? Do I have to cut everything? So it's much, much easier if you decide a point where if it's smaller than this, I will pre-cut it and then I'm all ready to go. Some people will take odds and ends and just throw them in a jar. And this may work for you. If you have scraps, say from when you do binding pieces, or you just want to dump them in there, fine. Because a lot of the modern quilting will just go to a jar, and maybe this quilt means I'm going to empty the jar, and then the quilt's done. So whatever style of quilting fits you, but I've really, really found that it's nice if I pre-organize some of my scraps. Happy quilting from Millhouse Quilts.